and then you're going to talk to me about what you're doing, basically step by step. Talk to me about your bees.
And she edits the whole thing, Terry, so don't...
if I act stupid or
Oh,
something.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
She does a really good job.
Like, I'm already video recording you and I had no idea, so.
This is our bee smoker. You need it to do bees. I use balance twine. You can use sumac, sometimes pine needles. Wood pellets work good.
And so tell me your name.
My name is Terry.
And you have how many hives?
Around 20, 25, somewhere in there now.
Okay.
We lost quite a few over the winter. So we're just trying to rebuild again.
What happened over the winter that was tough on your
cold
hives?
winter, the mites. Should ask Dave. Just they usually die if you try to take care of them and survive. Could be multiple things. Between some of the diseases they get and the cold weather usually kills them. If they're not strong enough, or sometimes if they're too strong, they get moisture in them or something. But we're gonna inspect the hive today. Hopefully we can show you the queen and some of the stuff about them.
And so before you go to your hives, you always put on protective gear, correct?
Yep, you actually have to have a veil every time. The bees like dark spots, so if you were actually to come do bees and you agitate them too much, they'd go for your eyes or your mouth. That's why most people wear veils. You can try it without if you'd like, but it's not recommended at all.
Okay. And they don't sting generally through your bee suit, right?
No, not these. Are more protective ones nowadays. They have it's not uncommon to get stung a couple times out of 20 hives, but it's not, you don't get like 10 or 20 stings unless you forget to zip something up or agitate the bees. If you were to come on a you don't want to do it on a rainy day. High humidity day is bad for them. If you're mowing grass in front of them the day before or that day, you don't want to open them up. Stuff like that. The smoke is actually to calm the bees. You smoke a hive and it makes them gore themselves in honey, and that'll make them lethargic and not so apt to sting.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go. So there's 3 of us here. We're all suited up identically.
So we smoke the entrance. One thing about the smoke is if it gets too hot, it will agitate the bees.
So you probably use specific things to smoke that won't get so hot then.
Right, that's why they use balance twine, or even white cotton works really well. If you use balance twine, you don't want the treated stuff. These guys are pretty calm. If you want to come right in, you can look at them. You got to be very gentle taking the frames out. Usually I start with the one out, second one in. This is a new hive this year. This is just worker bees. There's some honey that they're gathering already, if you can see the liquid in there.
So worker bees are usually males?
Nope, all of them are females except for the drones.
That's right.
Worker bees are actually the same egg as a queen, except when they feed it, they call royal jelly, that a queen bee gets a lot more compared to the brood of a worker bee. One thing, this is brood right here. There's cap stuff and the stuff that's gonna be capped. Right there's a queen bee.
Found
Can't even see her.
Oh yeah. Yep.
See how big she is? That would actually be the queen. These are all females. When you see a queen or you see eggs, that's a good thing that the hive's still in good shape. They have brood. I don't know if can you see with that camera there's eggs in there and they're curled up in the bottom of it. There's different stages of larvae.
How about over here, Marie? Can you see the white in here?
Oh yeah, sure enough.
Okay.
Look at that. She just went on my hand.
Yep.
When you're when you get the hive out and you got the queen already, you got to make sure when you put the frame in that you don't, these parts go together. You don't want to smush the queen. You don't want to kill her, so you wait until she's somewhere on the frame and you put it back. Generally you go through the hive looking for the queen or eggs and make sure that they have that part. And then you can look for any kind of problems, queen cells, or which I know there's a hive here with queen cells. Now this is capped honey
Oh wow.
that they're already storing. And a good rain day on a big hive would eat that whole frame out. So they have to store up. And so as they go longer through the summer, they'll get bigger and bigger.
And then once they fill these frames, then you put another stack on top.
Correct. Yep.
So when do you harvest the honey?
Usually in the fall, all at once. Usually you'll have this size hive, another one. Then anything other than that would be surplus honey. Now this is honey that's been crystallized from last summer over the winter. That's made it through the winter with them. Oh. That they're just gonna clean out and redo basically. If you can hear the hum of them now that we're going through them, they get louder and louder. Well, that's basically what you have to do to inspect a hive. Over here's a baby hive that the hives are gonna swarm. What happens when the hive gets too big, they tend to swarm. And you can split them. Now, this hive doesn't have a queen. So they might be a little more aggressive. I'm just telling you that you won't notice it because they're so small. But we can pull it out and show you a queen cell. Unless they already have a queen. A good sign that they don't have that they actually don't have a queen. You see the brood here?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's honey in with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually a sign that there is no queen.
Will he sting through my glove?
No.
Okay.
You'd have to have these gloves completely tight to get stung through. I went through, I normally get stung like 3 times a year. Out of those 3 times.
He's hanging out.
Yeah, just watching you. These are generally, they're not aggressive at all toward you. It's when they, okay. You can edit that out, right? There's queen cells on this, but I want to shake some bees off of it.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna try to shake some bees off this to show you. They don't have a queen, but they make their own. These are what you call queen cells. See how they're so much bigger than the rest of them?
Mm-hmm.
That's how they make. They take an egg and they feed it royal jelly, which would be full of royal jelly inside it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they would make a new queen. It's the same egg as a worker, but they end up feeding them more royal jelly. Here's a starter one. This is what they start out as. There's nothing in it. But.
Now, is it okay to have 3 of those?
Usually we don't keep 3 of them. Usually 2 at the most. I don't know if you wanna. We can cut one out. See how that's the royal jelly in there? And that's, there's no more on that side, right? This came from a larger hive that made it through the winter and was going to swarm they call it. So before they swarm, you go catch them out of a tree if you can. You kind of I split them so that they don't, so you don't lose the bees basically. There's a, oh, I don't see any drones to really show you. Here's some drone comb. It's a little bit bigger. There's right here's a drone. Drones are male bees that can't sting. See how much bigger he is compared to the workers? He's like a fat tub. And this bigger comb like this. Here's one hatching right now. It'll take him a long time to get out of there, but see, here's drones. Generally, people think that if you have too many drones, that it's bad for a hive, but over the years, if they have drones in there, they're actually, especially in the spring, it's better for a hive. It's more normal. They only
Do drones? Oh, go ahead. You were going to answer my question before I asked it.
Do drones what?
How long? Like, what's the lifespan of a drone?
The lifespan of a drone is a season. They are only there to they eat honey. They mate with virgin queens, and they do that out in the open. And they're only there to usually once the frost hits in September or October, the worker bees will actually kill all the drones. If there's a queen in the hive and the hive is actually in good shape, they'll kill as many as they can. We take bird comb off just to keep the hive cleaner. Some people do it, some don't. One thing about bees is you need to comb the frames, like a hive for it. You need the bees, the worker bees, and enough of them, and you need a queen to have the hive. They function as one, the 3 parts. Take one of the parts away, they don't function, and they could die. And worker bees generally live 6 to 8 weeks if it's a heavy season. One thing about bees is they'll actually worker bees, they'll actually kill themselves to save the hive. I guess you call it a sacrifice thing. But if there's too many bees in a hive, they can't support it. The bees will actually swarm without a queen just to save the hive, to save the queen. So
when you go in to collect the honey, what is actually what makes the honey? Nectar or the pollen they collect?
Honey is nectar. It's nectar from the flowers. They actually bring it in there and evaporate it in the hive. And then pollen is more their protein, where the honey is more their carbohydrates. They need pollen to actually make new bees. They need they store the honey to survive the winter. Usually need about 100 pounds that you leave on a hive for the winter. For the hives, compared to, you can take more. Some hives will make a lot more than that. Some won't make enough. Just depends on the season where they're put. This hive just added this box a couple days ago.
So you had this apart. Just find the queen.
The queen's in this one. This one doesn't have one.
You want
either.
to just leave this one?
Oh, we can show her. Doesn't matter. I don't know how much of a video she wants, I guess.
Whatever you guys want to do.
Watch you get stung, dance around. I'm just see your face.
Dave already knows what he needs to do if that happens.
Are you allergic to bees?
Yeah.
What the hell? You
Yeah, I don't. She's not gonna get stuck.
I'll be fine.
No, the chances. None of these hives are aggressive in here, so it's not. Basically, you look at every frame, make sure there's there's the queen.
You can just tell like the difference between that last hive and this hive, and the way the bees are interacting, and like you said, without the queen, they do seem. Not that I felt like I was being aggressed, but
Right. If you actually had a bigger hive that was like by fall, this will be full of bees. This will be full of bees. They'll be pouring out of these. If you didn't have a queen, yeah, you'd have bees all down the front of you, and they'd be a lot more aggressive. That's what you try to make sure you check them. Most people say every 10 days to keep them from swarming and to check them. Some people say that you should only do a couple times, once a month. They're your bees. You can do whatever you want. The more you handle them at first, the more you're going to learn about them. There's things about bees, like the way they sound. They can tell you if they're queenless or not. The way they smell sometimes can tell you something's wrong with them. They might have an odor that is not normal, but it's not unusual. I don't have a. I'm gonna go grab a empty hive over here to set this on.
I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
See, you're gonna be a good beekeeper someday.
This is an old hive that broke, and I keep a couple in every yard. That's what I call a back saver. That's all it is when my friend Mr. Brockman showed me about it. Some people take the hives and set them down when they have to split them in half. It's better for the bees, and it just saves you from bending over as far.
Yeah, this is all old honey.
Yep.
Oh, crystallized honey.
It's honey that's made it through the winter, and it's kind of crystallized where all honey crystallizes if it's real honey. It'll go from the liquid form to a crystal form, and you have to heat it back up. You try not to heat it up over 100 degrees, they say, because it kills all the stuff in them, all the good stuff you need. Depending on how the bees are acting, and you can some people like to smoke them so there's no bees left at all. You can over smoke bees and turn them aggressive.